This is the story of how a beloved Emmy-winning actor from shows like 30-something and The West Wing became the subject of criminal charges involving child sexual abuse, and how a new allegation from 25 years ago emerged just days after his arrest. Timothy Busfield, now 68 years old, surrendered to authorities in Albuquerque, New Mexico on January 13, 2026, facing charges that prosecutors say reveal a documented pattern spanning more than 2 decades. Over the next 20 minutes, we're going to walk through the complete timeline of allegations against Timothy Busfield, from a lawsuit in 1994 through accusations in 2012 to the current criminal charges involving 2 young brothers who were child actors on the set of The Cleaning Lady. We'll examine what the court documents reveal, how Warner Brothers investigated and responded, and why prosecutors are arguing he should be held without bond as a danger to the community. Who is Timothy Busfield? Before we get into the allegations, let's establish who Timothy Busfield is and why this case has generated so much attention. Timothy Busfield was born on June 12, 1957, in Lansing, Michigan. For those who grew up in the late 80s and 90s, you probably know him best as Elliot Weston on the groundbreaking drama 30-something, a role that earned him an Emmy Award in 1991. If you were a West Wing fan, you'd recognize him as Danny Concannon, the persistent reporter who had a thing for C.J. Craig. And if you're a movie buff, he's in some absolute classics. He played the goofy Poindexter in Revenge of the Nerds, Arnold the Rookie pitcher in Field of Dreams, and had roles in Sneakers and Little Big League. According to IMDb, Busfield has worked on over 100 projects throughout his career, not just as an actor, but increasingly as a television director. He's directed episodes of Without a Trace, Damages, Las Vegas, and Studio 60 on the Sunset Strip, among many others. But there's another important part of Busfield's background that's relevant to this story. In 1986, he founded Theater for Children Incorporated in Sacramento, California, which became B Street Theater in 1991 when he co-founded it with his brother Buck Busfield. This detail becomes important later because one of the allegations involves an incident that allegedly occurred at B Street Theater. Busfield also had an interesting side career as a semi-pro baseball player. He pitched for the Sacramento Smokies from 1992 through the 2000 season, hosting a record of 30 wins and 12 losses over 9 seasons. In 2024, he was inducted into the Sacramento Area Baseball Hall of Fame. In his personal life, Busfield married actress Melissa Gilbert on April 24, 2013. You probably know her as Laura Ingalls from Little House on the Prairie. The couple lives in upstate New York in the Catskill Mountains area, near Highland Lake. Busfield has 3 children from previous marriages, and Gilbert has 2 adult sons from her previous relationships. This is the man who, as of January 2026, sits in the Bernalillo County Metropolitan Detention Center in New Mexico, held without bond on charges of criminal sexual contact with a minor and child abuse. The 1994 allegation, the first public claim, the first public allegation against Timothy Busfield emerged in 1994, 32 years ago. This involved the 17-year-old girl who was working as an extra on a film set in Los Angeles County. The film was Little Big League, the baseball movie in which Busfield co-starred. According to the lawsuit she filed, the teenager claimed that Busfield assaulted her, served her alcohol, groped her, and attempted to have sex with her in a trailer. These are serious allegations that, if true, would have involved providing alcohol to a minor and sexual assault. Busfield's response was to countersue for extortion and defamation. He denied the allegations entirely. Here's what's documented about the outcome. No criminal charges were ever filed in this case. The civil lawsuit was settled privately out of court, which is common in these types of cases. However, Busfield lost his defamation countersuit and was ordered to pay $150,000 in legal fees. What can we take from this? The case was never tested in criminal court, so we don't have a conviction or acquittal. The settlement doesn't prove guilt or innocence. Civil settlements happen for all sorts of reasons, including the desire to avoid lengthy and expensive litigation. But it does establish that as early as 1994, there was a documented allegation of sexual misconduct against Busfield involving someone underage in a professional setting where he held a position of power as an established actor. The 2012 allegation, a pattern emerges? 18 years later, In March 2012, another allegation surfaced. This time, it involved a 28-year-old woman at a Los Angeles movie theater. The woman accused Busfield of battery, specifically alleging that he slipped his hand under her clothes and touched her genitals for 4 minutes. That's an extremely specific claim with a specific duration, which suggests she was very clear about what she was alleging happened. Busfield's response this time was different from his 1994 denial. He called the encounter consensual. This is an important distinction because it's an admission that something physical did happen, but his characterization was that it was wanted and agreed to by both parties. The case went to Los Angeles prosecutors, who declined to file criminal charges. The stated reason was either slim evidence or lack of evidence, depending on which news source you read. In cases involving allegations of sexual misconduct between adults with no witnesses, it often comes down to one person's word against another's, which can make criminal prosecution extremely difficult. But again, we have another documented allegation, this time involving an adult woman, where Busfield admitted physical contact occurred but characterized it differently than the accuser. Whether you believe this was consensual or not, it's another data point that prosecutors would later cite when arguing about a pattern of behavior. The cleaning lady. The current charges. Now we get to the case that's currently playing out in New Mexico courts. And this one is different because it involves criminal charges that could result in prison time. From 2022 to 2024, Timothy Busfield worked as both a director and executive producer on the Fox television series The Cleaning Lady, which filmed in Albuquerque, New Mexico. The show has since been canceled, but during its production, 2 young brothers worked as child actors on the set. These boys were born in 2014, which means they would have been around 7 to 9 years old during the time period in question. In court documents, the boys are referred to as SL and VL to protect their identities, which is standard practice in cases involving minors and allegations of sexual abuse. The investigation into what allegedly happened on that set didn't begin until November 1st, 2024. That's when a doctor at the University of New Mexico Hospital contacted the Albuquerque Police Department. Initially, the case didn't meet acceptance criteria for investigation. The boys had reported being tickled by someone they called Uncle Tim. But on September 2nd, 2025, the case escalated significantly. One of the boys, identified as SL, reported to a counselor that Busfield had touched his penis and bottom. This moved the allegation from tickling, which could potentially be innocent horseplay, to explicit sexual contact. Officer Marvin Brown from the Crimes Against Children Unit took over the investigation. On November 3rd, 2025, Officer Brown interviewed Busfield by phone. We'll come back to what Busfield said in that interview because it's important to understanding his defense. On January 9th, 2026, an arrest warrant was issued charging Timothy Busfield with 2 counts of criminal sexual contact with a minor and 1 count of child abuse. Let's look at what the warrant specifically alleges happened based on interviews with the children and medical records. According to the allegations, SL reported that Busfield touched what the child described in his own language as his poop and pee area. The child claimed he was first touched when he was 7 years old, and that it happened again 5 to 6 times when he was 8 years old. The alleged incidents occurred when the boys were alone with Busfield on set, and some allegedly happened while the child was lying on a bed. The warrant states that Busfield allegedly touched the boys' penis and buttocks, masking it as play. This language about masking abuse as play becomes a recurring theme in the prosecution's argument about grooming behavior. SL's therapy records document that he has been diagnosed with PTSD and anxiety. Medical records note concerns about grooming and sexual abuse. These medical and therapeutic records would presumably be available as evidence if the case goes to trial. One detail that investigators found concerning: witnesses told police that the on-set special teacher who was assigned to watch the children would, at times, lose sight of them. This raises questions about whether proper safeguards were in place on the set to protect child actors. Busfield's response and the grooming allegations. Let's examine what Timothy Busfield told Officer Brown during their phone interview on November 3rd, 2025, because this is his side of the story. Busfield told the officer that Elodie Young, the lead actress on The Cleaning Lady, told him in late 2024 that the boy's mother wanted revenge after the children were not brought back for the final season. Busfield stated that the children had aged out of the role, which is common in television production when child actors grow older than the characters they're portraying. Importantly, Busfield acknowledged that it was highly likely he would have picked up and tickled the boys. He described the set as a playful environment. This admission is significant because it doesn't deny physical contact occurred, but characterizes it as innocent and part of normal on-set interaction. Busfield also mentioned that his family had bought the children Christmas gifts and that they saw the boys at social gatherings. On the surface, this could sound like normal friendly relationships between people who work together. But here's where the prosecution sees something more sinister. Officer Brown's assessment in the arrest warrant is worth reading in full because it lays out the prosecution's theory of grooming behavior. The warrant states, "In my training and experience, pedophiles often infiltrate families under a trusted role, like Timothy, who, as a producer, exploited the hectic film sets to tickle and touch SL on his penis and buttocks, masking it as play. He would invite the family to off-set gatherings, with his wife buying Christmas gifts to foster closeness, making SL feel special and dependent. Classic grooming to erode boundaries, isolate the victim, and silence suspicions by blending abuse into normalcy." This is the prosecution's framework, that what Busfield describes as a playful environment and friendly relationship, they characterize as a calculated pattern of grooming. Building trust with the family, giving gifts, creating situations where the children feel special and dependent, all to create opportunities for abuse while making it seem normal. Whether you find this interpretation compelling or overreaching will likely depend on whether you believe the children's specific allegations about where and how they were touched. The Warner Brothers investigation before criminal charges were filed. There was an internal investigation that becomes relevant to understanding how this case developed. In February 2025, an anonymous complaint was made through the SAG-AFTRA hotline. The complaint alleged that Busfield had entered a trailer on the cleaning lady set and kissed a 6-year-old boy on the face while the child was getting a haircut. The complaint also claimed that photos existed of Busfield tickling and caressing the head and bodies of minor boys, obviously drunk. Warner Brothers Television, which produces The Cleaning Lady, commissioned an independent investigation. They hired Solomon Law's Los Angeles office to conduct the probe. The lead investigator was Christina McGovern, and she issued her report on March 31st, 2025. The findings? No corroborating evidence that Mr. Busfield engaged in inappropriate conduct or that he was ever alone with the accusers on set. Busfield was suspended during the investigation, but according to sources, he was exonerated based on these findings. In January 2026, after the criminal charges became public, McGovern issued a statement defending her investigation. She said, "I conducted an independent and thorough investigation of all allegations known to the studio at the time. Warner Brothers gave me full discretion as to my investigation. Based on what was alleged and all evidence gathered, including multiple witness statements, I found no corroborating evidence that Mr. Busfield engaged in inappropriate conduct or that he was ever alone with the twins on set." The key phrase there is all allegations known to the studio at the time. This suggests that either the specific allegations that eventually became criminal charges weren't fully known during the Warner Brothers investigation, or that the investigation wasn't able to corroborate them. The prosecutors are not impressed with Warner Brothers' investigation. In a filing on January 15, 2026, the Bernalillo County District Attorney's Office slammed Warner Brothers for limited cooperation in the criminal investigation and claimed the company's investigation was inadequate. This creates a complicated situation. You have an independent investigator hired by the studio saying they found no evidence of misconduct. You have prosecutors saying that investigation was inadequate and that Warner Brothers hasn't fully cooperated with law enforcement. And you have criminal charges filed based on allegations that overlap with the time period Warner Brothers investigated. Warner Brothers has made multiple statements about the case. On January 9, 2026, they said, "We take all allegations of misconduct very seriously and have systems in place to promptly and thoroughly investigate, and when needed, take appropriate action. We are aware of the current charges against Mr. Busfield and have been and will continue to cooperate with law enforcement." Then on January 15th, in response to the detention motion, they added, Our top priority is the health and safety of our cast and crew across all productions. The studio takes any and all allegations of misconduct very seriously. These are carefully worded corporate statements that acknowledge the seriousness while not making any admission about the validity of the charges. The 25-year-old allegation emerges. Now we get to the reason this video is titled 25 Years in the Making. On January 13th, 2026, the same day Timothy Busfield surrendered to authorities in Albuquerque, a new allegation emerged from Sacramento, California. This is where the TMZ headline that you might have seen comes from. It's important to understand that 25 years in the making refers to when the alleged incident occurred, not how long the overall case has been building. This is a separate allegation that came to light now, but involves something that allegedly happened around 2001. The allegation was reported by Colin Swift, who is described as a therapist and the father of the alleged victim. Swift's daughter was 16 years old at the time of the alleged incident, which occurred at B Street Theater in Sacramento, the theater that Timothy Busfield co-founded. According to the allegation, during an audition, Busfield allegedly kissed Swift's daughter and put his hands down her pants and touched her privates. This is not subtle or ambiguous. It's an allegation of direct sexual contact during what should have been a professional theater audition. Here's the detail that's perhaps most striking about this allegation. Swift says that at the time, Busfield begged the family to not report to law enforcement if he received therapy. Swift stated, "I thought at the time that was the best thing to do." If this account is accurate, it suggests Busfield was aware the alleged conduct was inappropriate, pleaded for mercy, and the family agreed not to involve police on the condition he get therapy. Whether that therapy ever actually happened, we don't know from the available information. This allegation has not resulted in criminal charges. There could be several reasons for this: statute of limitations issues, difficulty proving a case from 25 years ago, prosecutorial discretion, or other factors we're not aware of. B Street Theater issued a statement confirming they're aware of the report about an incident approximately 25 years ago, and that they retained legal counsel at the time to conduct an internal investigation. The theater noted that Busfield has not had any active role since 2001 and hasn't attended a board meeting since that year. He's listed as Board Member Emeritus, which is essentially an honorary title. So the timeline here suggests that something happened around 2001. The theater investigated, and Busfield's active involvement ended. Whether those events are connected, we can only speculate. The arrest and detention. Let's walk through what happened after the arrest warrant was issued on January 9, 2026. The U.S. Marshals were activated to help find Timothy Busfield. But before they could apprehend him, Busfield decided to surrender. He reportedly drove approximately 2,000 miles from upstate New York, where he lives with Melissa Gilbert, all the way to Albuquerque to turn himself in. On January 13th, 2026, around 1:08 p.m. Pacific Time. Though some sources say around 2:30 p.m., Busfield was booked at the Bernalillo County Metropolitan Detention Center. When reporters caught him, he made a statement that's worth quoting directly. "They're all lies, and I did not do anything to those little boys, and I'm going to fight it. I'm going to be exonerated."